What's up, everyone? You're listening to Bring the Heavy with Curt and Evan, your all-access pass to the behind-the-scenes of the scene. We're here to celebrate the history and evolution of deathcore and some of the heaviest music around, the people that made it happen. I'm one of your hosts, Curt.
And I'm your other host, Evan. For anyone that might not know, I used to tour with metal bands. I have an Instagram account, at IDW Museum, that's a look back at the 6 years that I spent in the band I Declare War. I'm also posting memories of the time I toured as a guitar tech for Whitechapel and As I Lay Dying. Reminiscing has been a lot of fun, so that kind of inspired this podcast. Curt is one of my best friends, and we have been friends ever since I started touring, so we're here to get some of those same stories from other bands. First, we're going to talk about what we've been listening to lately. What have you been listening to, Curt?
This should not surprise anybody, but I've been on a huge Gwar kick this week, which is pretty much like an every other week thing. I feel like I kind of go back and forth from like listening to stuff I listened to my whole life, and then I'll have a week where I kind of experiment a little bit, and then back to the tried and true stuff. So really just Gwar all week. What about you?
I, for some reason, fell into a kill switch engage mode, and I was listening to the End of Heartache every day at work, and I was just so in love with all of the pinch harmonics and guitar riffs and super ridiculous over-the-top dramatic vocals that Howard gives on that record. So I've been really into Kill Switch lately.
I've never listened to them much. I listened to the title track of that album, and it was good. I feel like I should probably listen to that this week.
When I asked you if you had listened to it and you said that you hadn't, it didn't surprise me, because you said that part of the reason you didn't like Sleep Token was because of the kind of poppy dramatic parts. And when I was listening to the End of Heartache, I was like, man, these poppy dramatic parts are so good. I bet that's why Curt doesn't listen to Kill Switch. And then I kind of thought like Kill Switch may have been like a precursor to Sleep Token, and I was just like trying to connect all this stuff, and man, I was going deep on it.
I saw them once, and it was a good show, but I never really listened to them. And now that you're saying making those associations with Sleep Token, I can kind of see it, because I don't like super melodic, pretty stuff. I like pretty gnarly, gross metal, so maybe that's why.
Okay, so for today, our first episode with a guest, we have the one, the only, the Cameron Argon, Big Chocolate, Disfiguring the Goddess. I don't know how to introduce you properly, but we have Cameron Argon today. And as you all know, Cameron is the writer of the Bring the Heavy theme. So we want to thank him for that, of course.
Hell yeah. Best theme ever.
It is the best theme.
Best theme ever. It really is. So I'm trying to think about how I know you originally, and honestly, the first time that I can think of how I know of who Cameron Argon, Big Chocolate, is was because of the Faceless audition video. I don't remember any time before that I know you. I seem to recall you saying that you were at the Douglas County Battle of the Bands and you saw me with Joe play in my band.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's
Correct
weird.
Me if I'm wrong about that.
Like, your dad lived like 40 feet from where I lived.
I could see your house from my kitchen.
But yeah.
But yeah, like literally around the corner. And But I seem to remember the first time knowing about you was that video, and I didn't really get to know you until later on, until I was more in I Declare War and touring, and I had moved back to Nevada. But did we know each other at all before, like, I moved back during the I Declare War years? Or was there... Because I just seem to remember you from that video of being like, this is Joe's friend. Wow, how did I not know this guy?
Joe's friend. I don't know. I was at that battle of the bands. I don't really remember Joe. Who was your guys' drummer?
This guy Matt Roberts.
Oh yeah.
He didn't really.
Oh yeah.
He didn't really play drums
That's
that
awesome.
much. He just kind of knew how to play, and so we just kind of like, all right, well, you're our friend and you play drums, so you're playing for us.
He's also hilarious.
He was a really funny guy.
Super
yeah,
funny.
I liked him a lot.
Yeah, he was
Our band was
hilarious.
called Tomorrow We Attack.
Sick. And then you moved on to I Declare War.
I know. I didn't make that connection. I didn't make that connection at all.
What are we gonna be
until
called?
I sent you that
I've
picture
got an
of the
idea.
flyer. And I wasn't even part of that, which is so funny.
You're like, what's your guys' name? I Declare War. You're like, I'm in. This is my band now.
It was
Perfect.
in the stars, man. But what about you, Curt?
I think I don't remember if it was I Declare Goddess or I used to watch your vocal videos a lot. And I can honestly say that I was so new to metal when I was watching you do those. You were the very first person I ever heard do like slam vocals.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's weird because I never obviously never knew you, but I knew that Evan knew you, and I watched so many of your videos on YouTube that it just kind of I feel like I know you. But yeah, I used to watch a ton of those videos.
That's always
And then
good.
I went back to watch years later. I wanted to watch that slam video again, and I think you maybe had taken it down, but somebody else had uploaded it with like 240p, but I could still watch it again. So that was cool.
It's probably better that way.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, actually. I had a note written down about that because I was going through your channel and looking at some of these older videos, and I noticed that a lot of them say 8 years ago. Was there a time that you took some of them down?
Yeah, there was I don't know when it was. It's probably like 2011, 2012, 2013. When I took a bunch of them down just because I was like kind of sick of hearing about them, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So-
That was kind of heavier. That was kind of heavier into more
Yeah.
Big Chocolate era, though, right?
Yeah, and you just, anything you put online, you can't really get rid of.
Yeah.
So,
And I was going to say, I really feel like you are someone that doesn't get enough credit for being an originator of someone that makes content, because I feel like you were doing that before being a content creator was a thing at all. Like that's just what you were doing. You were doing your daily vlog. You were doing your vocal videos. You were just having fun doing it. And you've just continued on with it. And I don't think you get enough credit for it.
well, thank you. Yeah, I think if the term content creator was around, then I probably would have been like, never mind.
Do you see yourself that way now?
Not really. I don't really feel like I make that much content, to be honest, compared to like your typical content creator.
Right.
Now, if you look at doing those types of activities, which everybody does now because of stories. So even like your typical Facebook mom is now a vlogger technically, you know. Like there wasn't really a blueprint for that, so I didn't really see the the I didn't really. I mean, I remember having kind of a long-term perspective in my mind. Like, I was thinking, like, wow, if I film every day of my life, when I'm like 40 years old, I'll have like 20 years on the internet. And I was like, that's crazy and awesome. And then just kind of had to do some things, probably more related to foundation building as an individual that I kind of wanted to do off camera, and I kind of to feel I don't know if this term influencer was like a buzzword yet, but I remember starting to feel pretty influential with like especially the vlogs, and I was like, I don't know anything. I don't like a lot of the stuff that I remember saying in the early days. I've kind of, I don't want to say reverted back to, but more so full circled back to kind of like feeling like that again. But I remember distinctly like there was like a period where I'm like, I have to kind of grow up a little bit, and I don't want to like talk about really what I'm going through or dealing with or thinking about so thoroughly, because I don't really want to be influential on some terms where I don't really understand the consequences of being influential on. So that was kind of like low key the main kind of drift away from vlogging. Also, like, you know, there's this thing I've also heard people talk about where, like, when you're a kid, there's friends everywhere, and then when you're in college, there's still friends everywhere, and then afterwards, like, things start to dwindle down.
Totally.
And I kind of ran into that really quickly, just because I never went to college, but I kind of like jumped into like more real world type of things, and I just kind of didn't have like the same amount of people around that were like down to be on a, not down to be on a vlog, but just kind of like wanted to have fun like that, where things were like, you know, I didn't really have so many, I'll say like characters kind of around
Right.
Frequently, you know what I mean? So when there was someone that would come around, it was more like special, and I didn't really want to like pull out a camera when I haven't seen someone in like 9 months or whatever, or and not just this particular person, but just like people in general.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
If I'm seeing someone every other day, and you know, where I'm always having fun and I hang out with you, you're kind of just in that whirlwind, which was fun then, because like it was, I remember back in high school when I had an iMac and people just wanted to like take pictures on it, put it on MySpace. Like that was super fun. Now it's like people don't want it, you know, don't take my picture, don't post it on Facebook, or they just assume that you're taking a picture or posting on Facebook with something when you're around certain people and stuff. So there's kind of like some cultural shifts with that I was kind of like aware of. I kind of like doing it more when it was a little more like people wanted to be on YouTube, you know, which was that was kind of the reason. It was just fun, you know, and
when it was more fun and less kind of structured as it is now.
Yeah. Like people always be like, you made a lot of money doing that? And I was like, you couldn't make money doing that.
Not
like,
back then.
No one even thought about that.
Totally.
So that was kind of, now looking back, there's probably some parts, like there's been some parts recently, specifically Cam Every Day, that I've vlogged. Not too much traction or anything, but more so as like a documentation. And I kind of think the people who tune into that channel particularly are a little more, I mean, it's entertainment in some ways, but I think they're just people who are like, I don't know, like generally not really trying to be entertained. They're just more generally interested.
Yeah, I've seen them. You're posting them more on the stories, right?
No, I like 2018. I kind of posted a little bit when my buddy Parker Winans was living with me, and then when I moved to Austin, I think I made like 3 of them, and then just kind of for fun. The big thing is just the workflow. Like if I get a workflow that's easy to do, then it's easy. If I have to edit stuff, then I'm not going to do it, because that's just like defeats it. I never really edited those, you know. It was always just like drop the clips, maybe like find something funny and, kind of copy it around. But I've been doing it lately a little bit more as kind of like a mini podcast, kind of like almost format where I'm talking about specific themes. And lately I've been trying to theme them around stuff that have to do with music. Or if someone asks me a question lately, I'll make like a more thorough response. And it's not really it's more like a random train of events thought-wise. And I'm kind of just doing it now because there's just some things I want to talk about probably in the next couple of years more publicly that I'm just kind of like training up for and maybe starting to like lay some foundation for. Mm-hmm. But it's just in so many ways like myself is compared to like when I was, 2010, 2009, just more mature.
Totally.
And I don't know. It's I don't know. Like a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, like the vocal videos, the early YouTube, it was like never really like when I did vocal videos, I think there was like maybe one or a few online. I only really remember the Vinkus guy. That's why I said let's do a showdown.
Yeah, I was gonna
Let's
say
take over this space.
It says vocal showdown with Vinkus.
Yeah, he was the only guy that uploaded like a death metal vocal video on YouTube at the time, and I was kind of inspired by him to do the same. And then I don't know which one it was, but like maybe the second or third video, I wrote him a YouTube message, which was a thing then. You could write messages and stuff. Yeah, and then like honestly, like I never had those like my dopamine muscles were all wired towards MySpace, not towards YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube was sleeping. They didn't have the little notification dings or whatever.
Yeah.
So like I would never go on YouTube and like look at what was happening with the videos. Maybe like every couple of weeks it'd be like, people are watching this. This is cool. But I never was like glued to like the feedback or much. I don't know. It's kind of cool to look back on because it's just very authentic.
Yeah, totally.
There was not like any. There's no other alternatives other than just to. I don't know. Contribute really,
I was thinking about that exact thing today when I was putting up some random blankets on my walls to do some sound dampening because I thought about the egg crates that you put up in your studio, and I was just like, I feel I'm doing what Cam did. I'm being resourceful and just, trying to do what I can in this little space. And
those egg crates were way better at building an identity for that studio than they were with any sound dampening. Everyone remembers those, but I don't remember them making much of a difference in there.
That's so funny. Was that so that Big Chocolate Faceless tryout, was that like were you actually trying out for the Faceless? Were you Big Chocolate? Were you known? Was that really what propelled you and what kind of put your name on the map?
I mean, at that point I had a couple, like the Abrogation's Crown death metal cover was that was the Vinkus Showdown one. And that one I think was pretty popular. And I don't like again, the dates get all screwed up because I took them off.
Yeah.
Made them private or whatever for a while. When you republish them, they get republished.
The Showdown one is just death metal vocals. That's the title. And
classic
it has
YouTube. You know what I mean?
It has 830,000 views as of right now.
That's
the
cool.
other one is titled The Faceless.
Yeah. So I remember,
and it has 495,000.
This had to be 2008, 2009. Had to be. And like I knew I couldn't do it. I knew I wasn't going to join a band and tour when I was in high school,
Yeah.
So like even if they were
That's
like,
why
yeah, we want you to do it, I would have been like, I can't do it. But so I kind of just wanted to do it just to like see if I could, you know, penetrate into, I don't know, who knows? It'd be cool if they asked me. I don't know. I honestly wasn't really trying. I just was like, it's an instrumental death metal track, and those Faceless songs are good. I like the vocals on the originals,
Yeah.
and I don't know if people were doing the full thing or what. I just remember doing that bit, and I remember it was good because it was not that this was intentional, but people were like talking a lot about it, and
It was popular.
I remember the Faceless like even addressing it, being like, "Big Chocolate's not our vocalist." They're probably hella bugged I made that video. But I don't know. It's a classic. I thought, like, if I go back and listen to that shit now, I'm like, this is dope.
It's still good.
Yeah, it holds up. I thought it was sick because, I wasn't really like a metalcore or a hardcore vocalist. I still am more of just a death metal vocalist. So I was like, I thought this was like, I just thought it was sick, brutal, I remember trying out for another local band, and they went with some other guy who had probably a little better range.
A local band in Nevada?
Yeah, when I was in high school too.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember what the guys' names were. They were cool guys that they lived in Carson City. I can't remember the band or anyone in the band's name, but I remember I didn't make that either. Not that I was like bummed or anything, but stuff to do,
But what was it that got you into vocals and death metal, and like how did you get into that in the first place? Because you've obviously got it, you're a name that comes up every time anyone talks about, there's a Reddit thread who is the best vocalists. You're always on there, and so you're obviously talented with it. How did you get into that in the first place?
Well, thank you. Not really getting into like how I got into metal, but I remember when I was into like really writing songs a lot, I would write songs on Guitar Tab Pro. And the thing I liked about Guitar Tab Pro was you could write drums and in bass and other instruments in the same song. And that was kind of my first experience.
Did you see the Instagram post I made today?
Now I have to keep social media off my phone because it destroys my brain.
It's about how I wrote music in Guitar Tab Pro.
I feel like people made a lot of great music at that program. People still use it.
That's
I know
awesome.
that for sure. But I would write songs in there, and I'd write the drums. And my biggest inspiration was this. It's not this band. I'm sure people know him. Old Man's Child. The guitar player in Dimmu Borgir was in that band, and then he joined that Dimmu, and then he kind of kept Old Man's Child as just kind of a project between him and the other guitar player. And they have a song called, or not a song, it's an album. It's one of these albums, like I've never talked about it in conversation where I'm like, hey, have you checked this out? So it's like, I've been listening to it since I was like 16, and I don't know that, I don't know how to pronounce. It's like In Defiance of Existence or something. It's got like some chick on the cover. Awesome, awesome record. Probably like one of the most. Well, there's a lot of influential records on Disfiguring, but it's definitely like one of the most, just in terms of like atmosphere and mood, and just songwriting. But he would do the vocals, and I always thought his vocals were so sick. And I remember thinking like, if I could do the vocals, then I could do what he's doing and do like the whole thing. Like the vocals is like the thing I don't know how to write or place or anything. And so fast forward a little bit, get to high school, start Disfiguring the Goddess with my buddy Saf and Garrett McGee and Reed Mitchell. And Garrett was the vocalist, Reed was a guitar player. We kind of like met. Saf was a drummer, and then Garrett and Reed left, and then we got Jake and Nate, and they were both like Inhale vocalists. I don't even think either of them really listened to metal. Jake had a really eclectic music taste. We knew him from the punk scene. He was a really cool guy.
So were you playing guitar?
Yeah, only playing guitar and writing the songs, and then me and Saf would write these songs, and we were like inspired at the time. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, actually, like because when you're at this stage, you're more inspired by like what you're contemporarily into, and a lot of that was like death grind and slam. So like Guttural Secrete and Devourment or whatever. But like with Guttural Secrete, like maybe there's like 2 riffs that I was like very inspired by, and those 2 riffs lasted like 15 seconds. So it's like those 15 seconds are way more inspirational than me like rinsing the catalog compared to like stuff that I've like really, really spent a ton of time listening to, like Lamb of God, Cradle of Filth, Soil Work, like albums that I've really rinsed compared to stuff that the 15 seconds of it were very inspirational, which I like long-term making music and long-term making Disfiguring. I can feel a lot of like more original inspirations of stuff that's more like probably deep embedded in like my, when I'm flowing with something, what kind of naturally will come to is the stuff I've spent more time with, which is like, D.B. Borgir,
and you don't really
Old
realize
Man's Child.
it.
Yeah, like Guttural Secrete is like not inspirational at all to me in so many ways. But early on, loved that band. And they had a couple seconds that just were like, just a couple little transitions. They'd run a riff for like 10 seconds and then make a sound and go to somewhere else. I was like, this is so awesome. Like,
yeah, there's 2 pinch harmonics in Duality by Slipknot that I tried to replicate literally every live show I ever played, and I tried to make them sound identical to that song because that just stuck in my head, and it was like, this is the coolest thing ever. This is perfect. I need to make something that sounds exactly like that. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I love that. I love how like little tiny things that happen can inspire whole movements. Like Slam's a classic example. Everybody knows like the origins of Slam. What's it called? Leave of Inverosity by Suffocation. The breakdown is just like the quintessential Slam riff, and like every Slam band just plays that one riff, But anyways, we started recording music on a computer. Saf, we would record like with electric drum kit and cymbals, and then I'd get these vocalists to come record. And I remember like I lived next to the high school, so I'd walk home for lunch and every day. And I remember walking home from lunch and like mentally, without even trying or practicing anything and stumbling upon it, it was like I had an epiphany walking home from lunch. I don't remember the exact what I was thinking about or the train of events, but I remember being like, I think I know how to do vocals. I think I know how to do it. And I went home and I powered up the computer. And I think I have a recording somewhere, not on my computer, but like on one of these early demos where I recorded like the very first time I ever did death metal vocals. I just like knew it was going to come out good, and I had the microphone, and it sounded so sick. And I remember being like, this is over. It's game over. And
no longer just guitar.
Yeah, I think we recorded. We had Nate for a little while. We'd both do vocals, and then he just kind of got uninterested, and I was just kind of like, I had just my sound was for the songs that I was writing was just more kind of built for it. And then I got Tune Tracks, Drum Kit from Hell, and I wrote a really badass song with it, and I showed my drummer it, and he was like, "This is really good, man. I'm out."
I can't do that.
Yeah. But yeah, Old Man's Child, that was like a early kind of one man thing. And he used a lot of synthesizers in his music too. So that's still a staple. I still listen to that album all the time. I was listening to it a few days ago. I was listening to Cradle of Filth this morning, and I was just like, man, I haven't heard this song in so long, but I would just rinse this song, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was very influenced in my early days by the Atreyu album, Suicide Notes and Butterfly Kisses, and I
remember buying that at Barnes and Noble, and the guy working was like, he looked like kind of, I don't know what he looked like, but he was like, "This is a great album." And I was like, "Thanks." I think I only liked that one single on it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. It's the last song in the Lip Gloss and Black.
Yeah, all the rest of it went way over my head.
I put it on yesterday while I was running around town doing errands, and I was like, man, this is just so high school. This is like, it's so poorly produced and just so bad, and like it sounds exactly like what I was just ripping this stuff off, basically, like playing exactly what they were doing. Just
That's how it's done.
Man, yeah. Totally.
That's how it's done. I always think about that, like how ripping things off is like a really good way of making good music, because like it's probably not going to sound identical, and even if it does, like that's still cool to me. I rip Disfiguring off constantly. I'm always like redoing things I've already done before, or like using patterns or lyrics and stuff. But I don't know. I remember like that whole era too, because there was kind of a division, I felt like, locally in Carson City, Carson Valley, with like what kind of metal you were into. Like, were you into metalcore, or were you into like, I don't know what you'd even call it. It wasn't really, it's kind of, I guess, like death metal, you know? Like, are you into metalcore, or do you like Slayer and Cannibal Corpse, you know? Like,
yeah.
Do you like Norma Jean, or do you like Cradle of Filth? It's like you very rarely would people like love both, and there was a scene around people loving both. And I remember trying to like, because I feel like most of the people that I were seeing doing stuff were into like Norma Jean and the Chariot and stuff, and I just could not get into that stuff for years. Later down the line, I got into Norma Jean's "Oh God, the Aftermath," and I was like, "This just sounds like Meshuggah. Like, this is awesome." It does. It's sick. But I remember getting to that record like 2 years after.
Do you guys remember those T-shirts that said "Gore, not core" when people were?
Hell yeah. That's awesome. I probably had a sticker of that on my MySpace.
Some
I was really
some
proud.
sort of GIF.
Yeah.
So where did Joe come into the picture then?
I don't know how I met Joe. I can't remember for the life of me how I met Joe. Also, back to that Douglas County Fairground stuff. Like, my mom showed me a newspaper clipping recently of me playing it with Disfiguring the Goddess. And I was like, this happened?
Really?
Yeah.
You played that same show?
Not that same show, but
okay.
like a later version of it. And
Gotcha.
I can't remember who signed us up or why we did that, because I have a strong feeling that none of us wanted to do that. And I just blocked it out of my memory. So I don't remember watching you guys really. I wish there was a video of that. The scene was so good then. There were so many bands, so many people doing things, you know. But
it's funny because everyone that was doing stuff was a little bit younger than me. And so I wasn't part of that scene, and I was off kind of doing my own stuff and like recording my own music like by myself, and just I thought I was in my own world, and because I didn't know anyone besides Joe that listened to the same kind of music that I did. And so I didn't even know there was a scene. Do you remember, what was that band, Moments in Mayhem? Was that one?
Moments of Mayhem with Kevin Bowles and
Yeah.
Jack Hortho. And Wade Beavers. Shout out.
I was always so jealous
And
of
Guzman.
them because I was like, man, they're like a real band. And I felt like
Yeah, they were sick.
they looked like they knew what they were doing, and they were younger than me, and I was just so jealous of them all the time. And it took me until we did that Battle of the Bands thing to actually have an actual band, but even then,
Yeah.
Matt wasn't
They were
even
a
like
Chad
a
band.
drummer that wanted to play drums. He was just kind of doing it because he was our friend, so
Yeah. Which, I mean, a lot of bands start off like that,
totally.
I mean, all of our vocalists after Garrett were pretty much guys that just were like, yeah, I'll do it. I remember Jack Hortho would record us. Jack Hortho was actually a really big inspiration on me to like get into recording, because we went to his house and he just had like a Macintosh and like Pro Tools, and I was like, I need to get some of this. Yeah, Jack's awesome. So bands sometimes start like that, but Moments of Mayhem was like, they were awesome. They were all like best friends, and they're all just like, it was like a Chad band. It was like early version of Avenged Sevenfold or some shit. You know what I mean? They were like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, and they would open shows in Reno, and it was like, wow, they're really doing it. They're a real band. So you mentioned living in Austin, which I completely forgot that you had moved there.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about the time that we met up in Southern California when you were living down there. And then there was the time that you were living in Seattle, and we used to hang out and eat pho and burritos. And
Yeah, you introduced me to
you have been
Tan
all
Brothers.
over the place, man.
Yeah, it's funny, like, thinking back about it, especially like this last year has been, I would say reflective, but it's just been fast moving, and there's been a lot of traction.
Yeah, it seems like you're a lot more active than you've used to be.
Oh yeah, it's not just like random.
And productive.
I've been trying to be active and productive, but that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, basically I moved every 2 years. I think I stayed the longest in Seattle.
Really?
I was there for like 3 years. But other than that, it was like probably about a max 2. I was in Reno, I don't know, probably 15 months. And then in LA, 7 months. Back in Minden, probably like 15 months. And then Austin, 24 months. And then now I'm back in Nevada. Yeah. Because now I'm a licensed realtor now in Nevada, and that's a whole other conversation. Right. My dad has a brokerage out here, and I was kind of like not shifting away from music, but I was wanting to like kind of add a different trajectory to my life that wasn't music, and I was hoping to, also not lean solely on it, but just gain like a lot of analogies from it that I could apply to other areas of my life, including music, and just kind of give my life more long-term options and perspectives, right? So I got into sales, and then I came home for like a month, and I was like all of a sudden watching what my dad was doing with the company and his team, and I was like, man, I'd be great at that. So I kind of was like, I don't know if I want to move back to Austin and like, I don't know, it's my first sales job was like, well, I had an internship first, shout out Matt MacGyver, and then I had like a real corporate job, and I was like, this is not gonna work. Like,
what drew you to Austin?
The music scene. Yeah, I got a lot of friends there, and just in my opinion, it's the best music scene in the States, especially for like dance music, I think.
Wow. South
Well,
by
just
Southwest.
like it's sick. Like it's centrally located, so if you travel, you're half day from everywhere. There's so many people that live there, and like as a DJ too, it was like everybody was into all kinds of music. There was not really one genre that was like dominating anything, and everybody listened and went to everything, you know. So it's like, and every like culturally too, it's like you could listen to like you could be playing dance music, like playing dubstep or house music, and you could drop any rap music and everybody would know it and be into it. And you could drop like any Latin music and everybody would be into it and know it, you know? And that's just a rare place that you could do that at. You know, I play rap in other cities and stuff, and they're like, you know, maybe they're like looking kind of goofy, but in Texas, they like got it, you know? Now, you could probably play country in your sets too, but that was not my really my forte. But just great people there, just a awesome scene. I don't know. I definitely miss it, but like back to like productivity and just like what it takes to kind of really start to gain traction and knowing myself, like kind of how do I apply my own self-awareness to that process. I'm definitely getting more out of my time here. But that's only, I think, based on that I have lived other places. Because I could feel it. I'm a little older now, 32 now, but like when I remember even, my whole life I've always been drawn to cities, but I remember like when I was 28 and I went to San Francisco and I was just like driving around the city and I was like, oh man, I got to move to another city. Like, this is awesome, you know? And that's when I moved to Austin. Austin's kind of the perfect city for that because it's not super big. You know, it's not like you're moving, like if just compared to the other Texas cities, it's not like Dallas or Houston where it's like, holy shit, this is huge, you know?
Yeah, I've only spent time there for South by Southwest, so I really don't know what it's like besides chaos.
Yeah, chaotic. Yeah, very I mean, it's chaotic most of the time, but once you're there, you can kind of get used to the flow and the chaos. And that's what was great about it. I really think I needed to live there during that time to kind of quote unquote graduate with that kind of impression or energy that I can kind of almost constantly recall from for motivation or inspiration. I'm pretty good at that. Like if something happens that's positive, I know how to like draw positivity from it well after it happened. But I can kind of see that to do what I know I needed to do, I could kind of draw off my experiences there. So I don't think I would be as happy here or as productive, especially musically, without that Texas experience. That was hands down like my favorite place I've ever lived.
Wow.
It's the only place that when I was moving away from, I was like, damn,
Bummer.
You're really leaving? Yeah. It's just crazy. And I think people don't really get it because I never got it either until I lived there. I've been to Austin specifically like a dozen times. I've been to other Texas City tons of times. Before living there, I had like 3 of my best friends live there. And I just never really like got it. And then after a few days living there, I was like, first of all, I didn't realize it was Southern really. I was like, holy shit, this is the South. Like, what are you doing? You've made a horrible mistake.
Very different from Nevada.
Yeah. But after a while, I was like, man, this place is next level. Just the things that people take for granted there are so awesome. It's so it's crazy, especially in the music thing. I mean, I'm sure it's fun for so many different other lifestyles too, but like doing music there, it's just like I feel like Miami would probably be a sick place to live, but Texas has like I feel like you could really it's an easy place to start from the bottom at. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've never really thought about going elsewhere outside of Seattle. I mean, I think, didn't we talk about this a little bit, Kurt? Or
yeah,
imagining that? I've mostly kind of stuck to the West Coast, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could do Texas.
Don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're asking about influences too. I guess like early influences.
Yeah, and
were
I was
like,
kind of curious about Commissioner and how your DJ life kind of crossed over into the heavy music because not everyone's into dubstep and you cross that gap, and I think you specifically brought awareness to both genres for people because there are such similarities between them in not obvious similarities, but just kind of in their sort of aggressiveness and like I don't know, the way that you were one of the originators of kind of both genres really, and crossing them together, I think isn't as recognized now as it could be.
Thank you. I feel like it will be after I'm done with doing what I'm gonna do.
after what I heard the other day.
Yeah. Well, that's in my opinion, tip of the iceberg. But
Oh wow. Okay.
so I feel like, I mean, I've been listening to music my whole life, and I've kind of always gravitated towards certain stuff. Like when I was younger, I was always, well, that's when I got into like, metal. And before I got into metal, it was like Rage Against Machine and movie soundtracks and Blink-182 or like The Doors, and then the band that changed it was I got kind of into Metallica very briefly, and I got a guitar teacher who was like showing me Metallica, and he was like, you could tune your string down like this, and then you're in drop D. And then he played Walk by Pantera, and he goes, you should check out Pantera. And when I got my hands on Pantera, it was over. I was like, oh, this is what I've been looking for.
That was it.
Because I remember like
Nice.
being in middle school and seeing like punks, and they'd be wearing like a Misfit shirt or a CKY or whatever shirt, and they'd be like wearing the metal stuff and had the crazy hair. And like, man, that music's probably nuts. Like, I can't wait to check out this music. And I listened to it, and I was like, this stuff's lame. Like, stuff doesn't sound that cool.
It's funny that you say originally it was Metallica and then you heard Pantera, because it was the exact same thing for me. My friend showed me Metallica and I got really into them, and then I heard Pantera, but I wasn't really into it. There was a bit more of the kind of like the toughness and the aggressiveness of it didn't really appeal to me, so I wasn't that into it. But I clearly remember the morning waking up hearing about Dimebag getting shot and going
Rest
to
in
school.
Shut out.
And telling my friend, like, dude, I am sorry, this sucks. Like, even though I don't like him, like, dude, bummer. What do you think about the reunion?
I mean, I'm not really crazy about trying to go see it. I think it's cool, but I don't know. I'm not really like a big live music person really that much either, though. Like, I think I'd like to see Rammstein, and I think I'm always interested in seeing Meshuggah. And there's maybe some other bands that I would like to go see, maybe, but like we have the Grand Sierra Resort in Reno. They got seating. It's like a theater.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll go sit
I saw
down.
Mastodon there one time.
I saw Mastodon there last year with my mom. It was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, I got my mom into Mastodon because I was like listening to Mastodon. I was like, I think my mom would like this band. She got into them, and then she's like, Mastodon's coming to GSR. I got us tickets. I'm like, hell yeah.
Cool,
But,
Mom.
I'd go watch bands there. Yeah. You're so badass. She had a couple glasses of wine. They're playing their last song, and she's like, let's get closer. Get to the pit. But yeah, I don't know.
Mamash.
I'd like to see bands in that. I don't know. I'll probably get more into seeing bands later on, but right now,
It's tougher, man. Kurt and I were talking about that in the last episode. It's harder when you're older. Things change.
yeah, I mean, it's all really kind of about your priorities too. You know, it's like I'd rather go to a band, see bands if I'm gonna like see people too, like almost as a socializing event.
Absolutely.
Like I was gonna catch Distant and Angel Maker in Sacramento, but I got the dates mixed up with San Francisco, and I was like, sorry guys, I'm not driving 8 hours to see you guys. 4 hours there, 4 hours back.
Yeah.
But I was gonna see them, and I was looking forward to that show. But yeah. Anyways, getting back to Commissioner and whatnot, and kind of my thoughts on that. I think my soul for metal has been developed over a long period of time through like that whole soul searching process of like soul searching kind of analogy for how one develops their own taste in metal. I feel like there's no two identical metal palettes. Like everybody has a different tree of when they got into certain bands, how long they stay with certain bands, and what direction that kind of took them to. And that's just dependent on your developing taste and time, you know. So my soul has been very developed through listening to heavy metal for a long time, and death metal too. And dubstep was kind of more like I heard like the ear candy aspect of it, and I was not into it. And the person who actually got me more into it was Mitch Lucker. Like he had like subs in his car, and he was like, "Have you heard this shit?" And I was like, "Yeah," because I was doing that Burning the Masses tour in England, and those guys were all into dubstep, the English guys. Annotation of an Autopsy.
Weird.
And it was like English music, you know? And so I knew a little bit about it, and I can't remember how Mitch heard it or got into it, but somehow either I burned him a CD or he had a burned CD, and he would like listen to it in his car, and he would like try to explain to me like why it was cool and like why this is like like
really push it on you.
yeah, but like why it was important, or what it was trying to do at its core. And Mitch was a very like soulful type person too. I think that's why we like really hit it off, is like we were both really visionary. Like we were able to kind of see things that were happening in other areas and see like analogies of or like parallels of how that is important to us, and these things are like almost more important than things that are happening in our direct ecosystem. So the main point though is like Mitch and I have always been able to like draw inspiration and vision from people who are doing things outside of, you know, metal, of course, right? And we were just like that immediately. I don't think we never like really talked about it. We just kind of were like that. And
Just happened.
so he was trying to explain like why this is important on like that level, you know. And so I would go home and I'd try to produce it and stuff, and you know, we did our thing with it. And then I did dubstep afterwards, and I've hit dubstep from a ton of different angles, especially early on. And the ear candy thing I think is a relevant point, because it was like an ear candy thing. It was aggression. I was applying, I think the reason my stuff was a little more catchy is because I was applying like a kind of a rock and roll metal attitude towards it, and I think in return it made it like dubstep pop more than it was like dubstep dance music. It wasn't like pop music in the sense of like radio pop, but the way I approached it was more thinking of it like you would think about it in a pop context. So it was
like how it was structured and
how it was structured, and just the elements, like the elements that jump out that define the song, you know, and that phrasing right there, talking about it as elements defining a song versus elements defining a track, It was much more like, this is something out. Like it was more approached as a song than as a track for the clubs. You know, it was
Right.
more approached how I would approach anything, right? So I think my early dubstep definitely had like a kind of a pop. It was more pop than it was dubstep, you know. But after getting more into dubstep, now I've been into dubstep for 10 years and all kinds of it too, not just the loud stuff, but mainly the stuff I like now is like the more deeper stuff. And like kind of learning how to apply the soul of both and to understand the soul of both and the mechanics of both. Because like I referenced like Lorna Shore earlier, and like I think there's a lot of things in deathcore currently that are not they're where you can hear the ear candy element of it before you hear the soul element of it. And I think that's very inspirational to people, and that's good. Like you were talking about earlier, like those two pinch harmonics and that Slipknot song, or like 5 Seconds of a Guttural Secrete song being like widely inspirational for us to go create our own stuff. Like I see the new deathcore movement doing a ton of that right now because of like the mass amounts of ear candy involved in it, where it's like these defining characteristics about it, and you could apply those and you could almost like replicate it directly and mix it with dubstep. But if you're not, to me, I grasp like the soul of things. So like if someone's dabbling with deathcore and dubstep, and I could just tell they're just dabbling with the ear candy elements of it, it just doesn't hit me the same way, just because I feel like my palate for metal is so long developed. I have it's harder for me to get more into ear candy metal at this stage. Like I think that's a good thing, because people who hear metal for the first time and are super creative and inspired by it, they're going to do their own things with it. They're going to make new stuff that's never been done before. And me, with my kind of long runway of metal, and then when I hear something that inspires me and I'm going to do new stuff, it's still going to be something that's never been done before, but they're coming from like two different exciting areas that should have a lot of like contrasting overall contribution to even further inspiring people to build on top of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to hear what's coming out now, because it sounds like what I was doing when I was touring. Like, you know, it doesn't sound any different than, you know, 12, 15 years ago. And but at the same time, it does have a different element to it. I don't know. It's very strange the way it's evolved and not evolved at the same time.
Yeah, and it's good. Like sometimes I hear some newer sounding metal, and like it sounds very similar to stuff I was doing 10 years ago, and it's just not something I'm interested in doing anymore, because I feel like I've already kind of played around with it, you know? But
Yeah.
When I was playing around with it 10 years ago, it was very experimental, you know? And I was making it on a computer, and it was experimental. And now bands are like really doing those sounds and touring with it and generating big fan bases and like really developing a culture around it that goes beyond just listening on speakers or something. You know, people show up, like people. I don't really know too much about like the deathcore culture, but I know there's people who listen to it, and I know there's those bands tour and stuff, and they're gonna spark people to develop their own kind of journey of palette development, you know? And I don't know. I think that this next decade is going to be super great. Like, I think it's going to get so crazy and so awesome. And I kind of see my own stuff kind of contributing towards it. Did you guys ever hear that record I did called Soothe?
I remember it.
Soothe came out in 2020, and it just sounds like it's starting to cut on some stuff that and it's all stuff that's been done before, you know, in a way. Like I listen to like Fear Factory, and I'm like, this shit sounds so sick. Like, this sounds so modern. Like, there's still not bands that have like hit that industrial metal sound as good as they have in some ways, in some respects. You know what I'm saying? But
Is that why you were sending it to me the other day?
that's a dope photo, isn't it? But I don't know. Yeah, basically what I'm getting at is I'm in a place where, like, you know, making metal, making dubstep, and like making attempts to combine the two in more of an alternative fashion, and with the alternative mindset is back on my agenda, and not just like, oh, I want to do that later. I'm doing it right now. It's just not out yet. So, but it's funny, like, back in the day, I would export something out of Logic Pro and put it on iTunes, and it was like,
Yeah,
there it
just
is.
right away.
Now it's
I
like
did the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Now I got to get it mastered. Distribution takes 2 months. You know, I'm like, damn, the hell. But I don't know. Yeah, shout out to Mitch Lucker, true G.
for sure.
I think about like I feel like a lot of the new Disfiguring stuff I write lately sounds like Commissioner. Like, it sounds like how Commissioner was like probably going to end up sounding. And I think Disfiguring is just kind of going that direction now. And like, I write stuff where I'm like, man, Mitch would be like, think this is the coolest shit ever.
Aw.
Yeah, he's the man. He's still like I still think he's one of the most influential guys around in the scene. I think people who knew him especially feel that way, you know.
Oh,
But
man.
definitely a G. It's crazy to think he died like 10 years ago,
Yeah.
you know? Almost. We're coming up on 10 years.
When we did that tour with like, I don't know, I just always kind of felt out of place when we were with bigger bands, especially bands the size of like Suicide Silence. But I will never forget that time we did that little tour with them, and the first show was at a pizza place, and we walked up the stairs, and they're sitting there eating pizza, and they all just jumped up. What's going on? You know, just like totally welcoming, just like couldn't have been nicer from the start. And yeah, so I didn't get to know them super well, but you know,
They're awesome. Still are. It's funny, like, you say that, because like sometimes I go back and listen to Malevolence, and I'm like, man, this record's so
do you?
dope. Like, it's just like quintessential of that sound. Even the production on it is just like so sick.
Oh, well, thanks. So what about you, Curt?
Well, not that we need to go off on too much more of a tangent on it, but when I was getting into heavier metal, I was into some like metalcore stuff, and I don't remember if it was Impending Doom or Suicide Silence, but I heard both of their first albums, and that was like a turning moment where I was like, this is really good. Like, this is, I don't even know what this is, but it's special, and I really liked it. And for me and my friends, The Cleansing was like, we listened to it every day, and it was so good. And they were already the biggest band to us. And then when like No Time to Bleed came out and they actually like blew up, we were just like, I didn't even know we thought they were already huge, and we're just like, I didn't even know they could be this famous. Like,
That new record is pretty good. I don't know if you've listened to it yet, but I listened to it the other day, and I was like, man, this is like super death metal. Like,
Yeah, it's sick.
It's a little bit different, but it was really good.
Yeah, riffs for days.
Yeah.
I watched a live video. It was really cool. Have you guys heard that band Peeling Flesh?
No.
They're a slam band. I think they're from Oklahoma. And
that's a pretty slam place to be from.
yeah. You guys should check them out. Their production's great. Their vibe is great. They really nail the sound, and they also make it really fresh and like exciting to listen to. And I think they could be a band that is like you could consider like a slam band, but also could be like accessible to other types of metal. I could see them doing like any kind of tour they could do. I could see them touring with deathcore bands or hardcore bands. All the musicians in the band are so sick too. And I saw a live video of them, and like it was the beginning, and they're like, "Yo, we're peeling flesh," and they were like, "Rest in peace, Mitch Lucker. If it wasn't for Suicide Sounds, none of us would be on stage." And they just start going into like the craziest shit, and I'm like, "Damn, this band's awesome."
Already a mark of approval.
Yeah, I was like, but I was already like way into them at this point. I'm just like, I just watched their stuff, and when they play shows, I will watch videos of it, and I was like, damn, that was a cool thing just to shout out randomly as like a slam band, particularly too, you know. But yeah,
Slam is super fascinating to me because it really just like the past year or two I've been getting into it. I had never really listened to any of that stuff, and then I listened to Molesting the Decapitated by Devourment, and I was like, right out the gate, it was another one of those Suicide Silence moments where I was like, this is one of the best albums I've ever listened to. And so I've been kind of going down that rabbit hole, and it's hard because I collect vinyl, so I have a harder time listening to music when I can't like buy it. You know,
Yeah.
it's harder for me to just like go on Spotify or YouTube and find stuff. So it's a little bit harder to get into slam bands because there's not a lot of it on vinyl, but I've been getting super into that. So I'll definitely check it out because I'm always looking for new slam now.
I don't know. Slam has always been really mixed around with just brutal death metal in general. Like Devourment and like especially that record is just like, and Baby Killer, that what's that yellow album called?
Butcher the Week.
Devourment has Butcher the Week. Yeah, that album's another classic. Like they were like a purist band. Then you had bands that like Abominable Putridity, especially the first Abominable Putridity record, very slam sounding, and then Abominable Putridity kind of went more of like just a brutal death metal route, you know. But that's very common for slam bands to go into like a brutal death metal route or to be mixed in brutal death metal.
I don't think there's much of a market, so that kind of makes sense.
Oh yeah, there's much of a market. In some ways there is, but it's like a global obscure exchange. You know?
Yeah, I have one. I can't even say it. Abominable Putridity album, and I bought it because of the font, like the logo. I was like, that's gotta be like brutal, like.
That's gotta be good.
Weren't you part of that for a while?
Yeah, in high school, those guys asked me to start working with them, and I did a show in Russia, in Moscow, with them, like a week after I graduated high school.
I forgot about that.
That was awesome. And then I did some. Then I heard like the follow-up record, and it was just the demos I was doing the vocals to, and it wasn't very slammy. It was it was very brutal death metal. And I remember like having a hard time doing the vocals, and then I think I did half the songs or something, and then I think they were just over it, and they went with Matty Way, and he killed it. I think that record now that I was doing vocals on too is like a very popular brutal death metal record. It's like the blue one with the guy escaping. You know, that's the one.
I have In the End of Human
one,
Existence. That's the one that I have.
That album rules.
Is it?
That album's so sick. That's the stuff that we were like jamming in high school, like in a Ford F-150, like. It's awesome. Yeah, I remember my old drummer Saf like loved that band too, and like it's just like no bullshit. And like that's another thing I like about when people are developing a certain sound like slam that's very one dimensional. It's like you needed to like build that box and then stay in it, you know? And that's where you're gonna like really push that genre well. And I feel like that record particularly did that extremely well. It had like just like sick like 2007 production on it. the vocals like never. There was no variance in vocal style. It was just like low the whole time. It was almost like he just would like turn on a fan, you know, and just have it like have that blow into the microphone and just provide that presence. I was like, this is awesome.
I'm looking at a picture of you right now. Abominable putridity, Russian fucking heavy machine. And you're just so serious with these 3 other guys.
These 3 other Russians. Dude, it was awesome. It was like it was so crazy. Like the show was sold out and people were like I guess my videos were just like really big there because people were just going nuts. I took so many pictures with people. It was awesome. It was awesome. I remember my parents didn't want me to go.
Oh, I bet.
I was like, well, I'm 18. I'm going to go. And then they were like, no, you're not. And then like one day my passport showed up in the mail and they were like, oh shit, he's going to go. My mom like didn't sleep the whole time. Like the moment I left the US, she was like, he's gone. He's in danger. But that was fine. It was awesome. I was listening to a bunch of that stuff last night. Do you guys remember the Partisan Turbine?
Yeah.
Dude, that band was awesome. I was jamming them last night. Well, my buddy and I were jamming them, and he was drinking Pinot Grigio, getting like way too into it. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go now.
I'm out.
Yeah. Thanks for having me over.
I don't know. You got anything else, Curt?
I did just want to say that, you know, as we were getting ready to do this, I was kind of refamiliarizing myself with some of your work and, you know, kind of putting pieces together. And I guess I had never really thought about how all these different things you do, Disfiguring the Goddess and the dubstep stuff and dubstep for moms and all that, the vlogging.
Hell yeah.
And as I was putting that together, I kind of started to see the line that connects them all of like, you've always been very inclusive. Like you've always kind of let people behind the scenes. You're like bringing people along. And I think it kind of clicked when I was reading the little description of dubstep for moms, where I was like, that's it. That's like the when you make the YouTube vocal videos in your bedroom when you're a teenager. Didn't you eat chocolate ice cream? Didn't you? That was a thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's like, how do you do these sounds?
So
it was like, this is my video. Or I think the description was, my secrets revealed.
So
I didn't say a word.
You see those YouTube videos to Disfiguring the Goddess and the vlogs and the dubstep stuff and dubstep for mom. I just think it's very cool how you're always kind of bringing people along for the ride, and it's just very cool to see that all that connect now. So I just wanted to let you know that I think it's very cool, all the stuff you've done.
Thank you. I feel like things are better when they're a little funny, and like dubstep for moms is a good example. Like it was when I made that record, it wasn't called dubstep for moms, but that's like how I was describing it to people. I was like your mom would like it, like you could play it anywhere, like anyone would like it, like you could like, you know, fold laundry to it or like sing in the car to it. And my buddy was like, why don't you just call it dubstep for moms? But anything that makes me laugh, I'm like, I'm going to do it because it's just funny, you know?
Where did Big Chocolate, did that just originate because of just a joke?
Well, you know, LG had a chocolate phone. That was my first cell phone. And I showed up to school one day and they were like, damn, Big Chocolate. Honestly, though, it was like, you know, back in like the... You know, if your name was like Ben, you'd be like Brutal Ben on MySpace.
Yeah.
You know? and like you had to have some. It's funny because that's still a thing now with handles. They're a little different, but people still have a handle.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the MySpace days, you needed a cool name, and I always liked when people in bands had cool names too. Like I think the guy in See Next Tuesday still goes by Fox. Like just random shit, I'm like sick. But I remember I was like really young when I think I started using Big Chocolate, and it was actually in the Cool New People. I stole it from some other guy. And it was like they wanted you to like meet other people. There's this guy in there named Big Chocolate. He was like posing all sick, and his page just had like all these like little like GIF images of like girls dancing and stuff. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah. Like, I don't know if I added him or not. It was really early on in MySpace. I was like, this guy's awesome. MySpace wants me to meet him.
What about Disfiguring the Goddess?
That name was actually Garrett McGeehan. We were called Corpses Make Mountains, and he was like, what if we made a side band called Disfiguring the Goddess? And I was like, dude, that should just be our band name. Like, that name's awesome. So shout out to Garrett McGeehan. He's also on the album Blood Animal. We both did vocals on that whole album, and no one notices. So I gotta constantly remind people. But yeah, when I started to do music, I'm not really a metal like guy. Obviously I am, but like I never had like a real metal personality. Like I think when people find out that I like metal, let alone make it, they're like very surprised. It's like, wow, I never expected you to like that.
I get the same reaction.
And so Big Chocolate was kind of like a nice moniker for that too. Like I'm not like this like I don't want to be called like Sun Devastation or something like that.
Yeah.
So I thought Big Chocolate was like kind of more my personality,
Mm-hmm.
especially like contrasting into metal. And at the time using it publicly, I was like 15, 16. So it was like very, very like non-serious. I remember, and then it got serious, of course. People like loved it. And then I remember when I was touring as Big Chocolate, DJing, I remember like being like 23 or 22. And I remember just like having like this night where I was like in bed and I was losing sleep over the fact that that was my name and I didn't know why. I was like, what are you doing? Like, you're Big Chocolate, like, and you're making music. Like, what the heck is going on here? Big Chocolate, like that's the name.
I love it.
It's great. Everyone loves it. I love it. It's fun. Again, things are they're better when they're funny.
Yeah.
Big Chocolate's just a classic, and now it's like a stapled name.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
In certain scenes, especially. Big Chocolate. There he is.
Well, I think as much as breakdowns and stuff, I think the humor that's kind of injected into deathcore is one of the biggest things that differentiates it from other death metal.
Especially in the earlier days with samples and goofy
Yeah.
T-shirts and stuff.
Oh yeah. Dubstep was like that too. Dubstep was always like build up, and then like, I'm happy you broke your leg,
Yeah.
and then dubstep. You know what I mean?
We lived for that stuff though, man. Like we would search for we would watch movies and be like, oh, right there, we gotta pull that one, and we would load it up onto our drummer's sample pad, and we would have just random samples, and then, oh yeah, that was such a big thing. It's fun when the crowd knows it and they all say it.
Oh yeah, you remember that band, Graf Orlock?
Sounds familiar.
Damn, they were so sick. They were a grindcore band. They called their style of music cinema grind. And every song had like a classic movie sample, either in the beginning or again throughout the period. And I saw them once at Chain Reaction when I was living down in Orange County. And they were the headlining band, and they set up all their equipment on the floor and told everyone to get on stage and all around them. So I watched from the stage, and it was sick.
What?
And they had a sampler, and the whole room would scream every sample. It was awesome.
Sick.
It was awesome. It was really rowdy. That's a great band. The album to listen to, or the album that I would repeatedly listen to, had like a face hugger on the front. What was it called? It was called Destination Time Tomorrow. It's a sick album. It's only 16 minutes long.
Classic grindcore. Is it 100 tracks as
How
well?
many tracks?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That always reminds me of that Pig Destroyer album. It's like 38 counts of battery.
Yeah.
That album rules.
Yeah, that's a great album.
That's on my... Yeah, all the music I bought on iTunes when I was growing up plays automatically when I get into any car my phone's connected to. And I lucked out, now it shuffles it. It was always the same Cradle of Filth song every single time. It was like a lame one too. It was like ding, ding, and I was like, God. But now it shuffles, so I always hear like Pig Destroyer and Mayhem. I heard At the Gates this morning. I was like, this is sick. I was like making business phone calls. I was like, this is awesome. Drinking Starbucks. I was like, this is great.
Well, is there anything, I mean, you said you've got a couple albums coming out, on the way that you didn't necessarily want to talk about, but is there anything that you do want to plug for right now?
Yeah, my super sick website, www.cameronargon.com. And then Twitter, Big Chocolate. I'm not on it right now because it's distracting and I gotta focus.
It's very distracting.
But listen to Dubstep for Moms. Listen to Disfiguring the Goddess Carnival, and check out my super sick website, www.cameronargon.com. I was thinking of adding a store to my website that was all fake. Like, I'm like, buy this Dubstep for Moms catalog, and it's like sold out. The Dubstep for Moms Escalade is on back order.
Sold out.
Every like few months I tweet it, and I'll be like, hey, like, I'm trying to get these orders out. Sorry, like, we can't keep up with demand. So dumb. Like the Dubstep for Moms, like yoga mat. The Dubstep for Moms,
That's a good
like,
one.
Yeah, the Dubstep for Moms water bottle. I need to make a Dubstep for Moms Stanley tumbler. Or what?
You do.
Cup.
I completely agree. I'll pitch it tomorrow in our meeting.
Yeah. Hey, there's this guy.
We are, 100% serious. We're doing artist collaborations right now, and that's part of what I'm doing.
Damn.
So
Dubstep
it is not out of the realm of possibility for you to reach out to them and do a collaboration.
Damn, I'm for sure gonna write a pitch. I'm gonna reference the sweet sultry beats.
Yeah, man, we've been chatting about 2 hours now, so it's probably a pretty good time to wrap things up.
Yeah, I got a lot of business stuff to take care of because I'm in the real estate business now.
Yeah, we had some troubles getting things scheduled at first, but want to thank you immensely for being our first guest.
Yeah, man, thank you so much for the theme song. Everything, being a guest.
Honored,
it's awesome.
honored to be
Been
involved.
a pleasure catching up with you. I feel like I got it wrong in the first episode. What band do you always text me about?
Flaw.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Payback.
Payback. That's
Yeah.
right.
That song's awesome.
I said Nickelback in the first episode because I couldn't think of what it was, but I knew it was something weird. But yes, it's Flaw. So we will be jamming some Flaw after this.
When he goes, guess what?
You suck.
Damn. That song goes hard. Makes you want to throw like your left leg back when you hit bang each time.
That is some new metal. All right. Well, I think I'm going to end things here. Thank you so much, Cam. Curt, where can we find you on the internet?
Well, if you want to follow Bring the Heavy, you can follow us at Bring the Heavy on Instagram. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd at CurtCake5K. What about you, Evan?
And I'm on Instagram at IDW Museum. And did you want to throw out any more, Cam?
Thank you, Curt and Evan, for having me on Bring the Heavy.
Right on, man.
Radio.
That's good. I should add that to it.
Radio. Mix.
All right, man. Well, it's good talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. You guys take care.
All right, thanks.
Looking forward to seeing the episode. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
Peace.
Talk to you later.
Shaka bra.